Welcome to The World Today on Channels Television. I am Amarachi Ubani. We're beginning today's program in Canada, where authorities reported that shots were fired at the country's National War Memorial in Ottawa, which is close to the country's parliament. Police tweeted that a witness reported seeing authorities search from room to room for the suspect. They said a soldier was wounded in the attack. Witnesses, however, also reported seeing shots fired inside the Parliament building. This incident comes just hours after Canada raised its terror threat level from low to medium. A soldier had been killed, of course, much earlier in a hit and run earlier in the week. We understand that Prime Minister Stephen Harper was set to have cancelled his public events for today, and he was moved out of the building much earlier. Police are still on the area as they suspect that there is still a gunman in the building. A government official was said that the alert level of Canada was raised to medium from low because of an increase in online general chatter from radical groups including Islamic State and Al-Qaeda. Well, the World Health Organization is holding a meeting. They call it an emergency meeting on the Ebola virus outbreak epidemic. The group has faced criticism that its reaction was too slow to the spread of the disease. That meeting is expected to examine screening measures at borders and consider if there should be stricter restrictions in place at the borders. The International Red Cross has described the travel bans placed on by some countries as irrational, saying that the only solution is for nations to join hands to contain viruses and epidemics at their epicenter, right where it starts.
Travelers flying into the United States from Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea must fly into one of the 5 airports that have enhanced screening in place for the virus. The restrictions on affected passengers were announced by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. These measures stop well short of the travel ban sought by some U.S. lawmakers in a bid to prevent further Ebola cases in the U.S. Affected travelers will have their temperatures checked for signs of a fever that may indicate Ebola infection at New York's John F. Kennedy, New Jersey's Newark, Washington Dulles, Atlanta, and Chicago's O'Hare International Airports, among other protocols. However, a top Red Cross official says closing borders will not effectively curb Ebola infections.
It creates a lot of fear and extreme panic that sometimes, lead to very irrational, type of behaviors and measures like closing borders, cancelling flights, isolating countries, etc. And those are no solutions. The only solution is how can we join our efforts to contain those kind of viruses and epidemic at their epicenter.
The World Health Organization, which so far hasn't recommended travel or trade restrictions to be implemented, has warned of 5,000 to 10,000 new cases of Ebola globally every week by December. It has said the outbreak constitutes an international public health emergency and has urged the screening of passengers from Liberia, Sierra Leone and Guinea. But health experts warn that excessive constraints on air travel could have severe economic consequences that could destabilize the region and possibly disrupt essential health and humanitarian services.
Well, since the Ebola outbreak in Guinea in December 2013, at least 4,550 people have died from the disease in 4 West African countries, as reported by the World Health Organization. This makes it the worst outbreak since it was discovered in 1976. The effects of this disease and the consequences goes beyond the loss of life to include social and psychological impacts on especially citizens of the affected countries. Our correspondent Inni Thompson is in Washington, D.C. She reports.
Countries such as Nigeria and Senegal may be celebrating their victory over Ebola, but Ebola is still a global challenge, not just to countries who have incidences, but even their residents and indigents, for example, Africans resident in the United States. The Washington, D.C. region is home to more than 161,000 Africans, as reported by the Census Bureau in October. Of this number, 10,000 are Sierra Leoneans and 6,000 are Liberians. This makes the area a good business location for someone like Sajo Kumar, who runs the African Grocery and Meat Market. It's a store where African food items can be purchased, and even with the fear of Ebola in the United States, Kumar suffers no loss.
The spices, only the one being bought. The rest of the meats are they produce in United States. So far, there's no problem.
But this is not the experience of some of his customers, who are mostly Sierra Leoneans.
People think that you're back home maybe when you go home you have relatives that have flown in from Africa, and then that's you pretty much they stigmatize you as being like you carry the disease, even though you're living in the United States and then you go to work every day.
They also have to deal with news from home.
I think about my mom, my family, my friends back home. They calling because right now I just send money back home to them and stuff like that. And then it's killing poor people back home, and we need help from the national environmental people, because our people are dying. Our people are just dying like chickens.
The United States has stepped up screening of passengers from affected West African countries as part of efforts to stop the import of Ebola cases. However, President Obama is still under pressure to place a total ban on flights from the affected countries. Ine Thompson reporting for Channels Television News.
Well, a fierce battle is still ongoing in Syria, where opposition activists claim the military has carried out over 200 airstrikes in recent days. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights says the raids took place mostly in western areas between midnight and Sunday and noon on Tuesday. The UK-based group also says that there were many casualties, but has not given a specific figure. The relentless assault comes as US-led forces continue to bomb Islamic State militants in Syria and in Iraq. In the meantime, US and Arab jets have been attacked